Well, good morning. It's the day after Father's Day, so this will be the 18th of June. Had a great Father's Day with my son and daughter and grandkids and all their family. And had an interesting occurrence at my Father's Day party, barbecue. My son's got a open garage there. It really works good. And kids going everywhere, doing everything. Girls and boys and big ones and little ones, in between ones, and then the little babies. My youngest daughter's got a Gunner, they call him. He's 14 months old, I think. And then my granddaughter, Casey, the one I call Babu, she has he'll be a year here shortly. So, them little babies. So here's the punchline on this. Here she comes with my granddaughter with a Nutty Buddy. I love Nutty Buddies, but I don't buy them anymore because I'm zero caffeine. But she given the baby, and right away, Grandpa, Tom, myself in particular, and this war on drugs and all forms of drugs and what it's doing to mankind and our mental, physical health. I speak up, and of course I get nowhere, and the little ones are eating their chocolate. It's because I'm this stupid guy, talking about chocolate, something being wrong with chocolate. Now there's wheat. You're getting wheat. The Nutty Buddy's a little, I can't remember what they call that now, but the little wheat cookie with sugar and then coated in chocolate. So we get sugar and wheat and chocolate. The babies. And they've been doing this since they were, 2 weeks old or something, probably 2 months. These are typical. This is all across the world and in America, and everybody feeding their babies Nutty Buddies, ice cream cones, and some more wheat and milk and sugar and corn and chocolate and caffeine. And so I'm this stupid guy, see. So that's what this whole website is all about that I'm posting this on. I tried to get both my daughter before these little babies were born. They were both pregnant. And I said, don't circumcise them guys if they're boys. I guess they knew they were boys. I think they did that ultrasound stuff. And so I'm saying don't circumcise them. And I'm getting nowhere there either. Just like with the Nutty Buddy yesterday. Just look at you like you don't even know you're there. And some guy over here, don't circumcise your babies. And don't feed your babies that chocolate because it's caffeine. He's a stupid fucking idiot that thinks that this is a potent, powerful drug. Yeah, you can hear that? That's what that old foolish man thinks there's something wrong with giving babies wheat and sugar and chocolate. And he thinks there's something wrong with caffeine. Yeah, coffee and tea. And he's so foolish and dumb. And circumcised. You think they shouldn't be circumcised? What a fool. What a fool I am. Now, what I'm trying to say here is how fucking dumb are the people that are listening to me, whoever that might be or not be, that'll feed infants, babies. One can't even walk yet. The other one just barely. He walks good. He's been walking since he's 8 months old, Gunner. He's the king of the troop there, the two, and the little one, he cries because the big one reaches over and takes stuff. Actually, the little one's bigger than the big one, but the big one's older, and he gets around, he climbs, and the little one just standing up and just getting to going, I make the joke. I told him that the dad was there for the oldest one of the two, which is 14 months. And I call him the varmint, boy. He's into stuff like you can't believe it. He's been terrible too, but he wasn't even 2. He was 8 months when he was motivating. And but you know why I call them that? It's so cute. They're just into everything. They're just so alive, you know. It's just so unbelievably wonderful. But that big one, lording it over, he ain't lording it over him. He'll reach over and poke a little bit. Just take whatever he wants, does what he wants, because he's big and strong, and that other guy can't do shit. So I say he gonna poke him in the nose one of these times. That little one there, which is the smaller or bigger one of the two, but he's younger. But not to take away from that other one. And then I said, and then that other one's going to tear him a new ass after he gets over getting poked in the nose, because he's find out he's still stronger yet. And that other one's going to cry. And then eventually, then that other one that got torn a new ass is going to poke him again. And then when he goes back to tear him a new ass that second time, he's going to be there. And he got a whole lot of ass tearing to do, because this guy ain't going for it. And then them 2 little puppies, say, they just frisking about, and then they're okay. They're finding out what life's all about, and what the strengths are, and what you do and what you don't do, and interaction with the humans and babies and peoples and dogs and cats, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful life. I'm just saying, don't feed them drugs. And for the boys, don't circumcise them. For the girls, don't circumcise them. And don't feed them all this poison. And this world that we're in. But do you see the example? This is my daughter and my granddaughter. How blind. You know, you hate to use the word stupid, you know, but it's, and it's the men and the women. You know, they think they're hygiene for the circumcision. They don't know it's the mark of the fucking Jews and the Christians, and that it's that's a gland, that piece of skin on the end of the boys or men's cock, the piece of skin that goes over and covers the head. So normally we got that head sticking out on our cocks. That's because we're circumcised. But by nature, there's the pouch comes up over that, and you piss through that. It's got a big opening in the hole there, and you can pull the skin back. When you get an erection, the erection comes up through that, and then the head sticks out, and all that skin. But then normally you don't have an erection, and then the skin's covering it. But there's little glands on the end of that. I don't know the actual science of that. And I think there's possibly even some lubricant involved in that when the male-female get hot erection thing takes place. And I mean, we're talking nature and we're talking perfection here. You know, you don't circumcise nothing. You don't circumcise the dogs or the cats or the deer or the buffalo or anything else. They're made perfect. And the female parts are made perfect. And we use them for bowel and urine movements, our orifices and just part of life, like food and breathing through our eyes to see. It's perfection. And you know, all us men are circumcised, and we're okay with that. There's sensitivity issues there, and it's not a good thing, and it's a crock of shit, is what it is, and it's. I think the original they'd identify. You know, nobody could infiltrate them or something. I don't know what all the customs that fell in behind this bullshit deal. But I know it's Christian and it's bullshit. I don't know if the Muslims circumcised them in or not. I don't have any idea, really. I haven't heard that much about it. I know there are some similarities. It's surprising that the Muslims are the Christ in the Bible and Moses and all that, and then they got their Quran version, the 2 sons of Abraham, and I'm not a scholar on biblical or theology but I have a very sound basis in the generalities. I know Ronald Reagan was the first time I heard him say, we're all sons of Abraham. Well, so apparently Abraham had 2 wives, and one of them was a Jewish wife and all them children, and then the other one was concubine or something, girlfriend or mistress or something, or second wife or whatever it was. and all them people, and apparently the two groupings, and the two groupings, you know, it's like you got the Mennonites and the Catholics and the and Lutherans, and you know this whole each family, each tribe, and it becomes big bands, and you know, originally all the races were on continents of their own groupings, and you know, the favoring of one's own family, and just like the little ones getting there first, and having the control over the situation there, and just it's just life. But this man's interference with this life, and then and this drug thing and this chocolate thing, we're talking emotions here. We're talking feelings and senses, exaggerated and distorted. And then with the circumcision, we're talking about our actual feelings for a physical interaction, you know, in the mating world. And it's all a bunch of bullshit. And this man invention stuff. This man invention stuff's what's ruining and destroying. You know, our culture is so, God, we're so fucked up. It's unbelievable. And of course the British and the American elite, they want to just clean up the streets and clean up the homelessness and clean up the, you know, there's been vagrancy laws forever. You know, you couldn't just hang out on a street, and you know, and you couldn't panhandle and ask people and be a beggar, you know. And I know when I first time I went to Mexico, they're really good at begging. You know, that's one way of making a living. It's like the guy with the sign at the corner when you leave Walmart or something. He's a beggar, and he's learned how to do that. You know, and they get good at it. And this one in particular, this little girl, gee whiz, she's like 3-4 years old, and she reached out and begging for money, but she does it in such a way and just breaks your heart. I mean, she's just such an innocent, pure innocence. I give her like $5, and you know, she whisks away with it, you know, and that was all good. I'm sure she went back around the blanket to where the adults and the big people were, and $5 of them. That's a huge hit in Mexico. And I'm sure she gets a lot of those. That little girl might bring in 500 a day American, which is like 10,000 a day Mexican, whatever, however it washes out to them. And I don't know where I got onto the begging side of this, but this life, I'm trying to refer to the elite, and that's where I got onto the beggars and the street peoples, and the people that are, you know, living in shacks, and you know, the trailer house trash, and they want to clean everything gets cleaned up. Now there is a lot of illness and drug addiction and alcoholism and just horrid lifestyles occurring the farther down you get. The more elite, they got everything under control for their alcoholism and their caffeine addiction, and they have the warring armies there. So, see, everybody doesn't fit that mold. That British Queen Elizabeth royal family, we will all be like them. We'll wear shoes and gowns, and we'll circumcise, and we'll have communions and the Lord's Supper, and gospel singers and hymns, and we'll have these funerals, and when we're dead, and we'll circumcise the babies. I'll bring that up again, and everybody will have caffeine, and we'll all be high. And of course, we're the superior. We're the African slave. We just make slaves out of them people. And the American Indian, they're just heathen savages living in filth, and they don't have nothing, you know. And here we have guns and homes and castles and horses and, you know, armies and we're thrones, you know, and crowns and robes, and oh, we're just such great people, high on caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine, and wheat, and milk, and juice, and honey. So that's this high, and you know, them little kids are going to go to their grandmas and grandpas. They're going to get fed that stuff, and as far as the immediate effects, you know, I mean, let's say the circumcised. Well, okay, all the kids in PE are circumcised. They're circumcised. There'll be a very few not circumcised. Everybody doesn't want to be different. They want to be part of the crowd, and as far as the little ones eating chocolate, they appear to be the same today as they was yesterday. I'm saying there's a profound effect. Now, they're not going to turn into kings and rulers and psychopathic murderers. I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say to recognize, if I'm going to give that little kid, I don't care if he's 9 months old or 19 years old, chocolate, I'm giving that kid caffeine and wheat and sugar. Okay? And I'm saying that's a good thing, because that's what we do. We have church socials, and that's the first thing we do is everybody gets their caffeine and their sugar and their wheat. You know, it's a cake circle or whatever it is. And I'm saying let's recognize this, because this is how we got rocket ships and man flying through the space to the moon. This is how we built all these warring, killing armies. There 50 million people got murdered and killed and died in World War II. 50 million. That's been 72, 73 years ago. 75 years ago, if you go back when the war was going wide open, 75 years ago. So 50 million then, and we added 5 billion people since then. And there was 2.5 billion people when them 50 million got killed. It's just astronomical what has occurred in the world here, and in the later thrusts with all the caffeine and chocolate, tea and coffee and Mountain Dew, and that got us here, and refined sugar and hybrid carbohydrates, wheat, corn, and potatoes, all the grains, our whole entire food chain, you know. And we don't know this, and we just think this is so great. That's the other thing. I get in. My kid, he wants to be a patriot, you know, and he wants to hold that flag up there. And I said, well, you hold that flag up there, and here we are, the murderous people the world has ever known, and we're going to murder some more. You North Koreans, Trump's out there telling the North Koreans that they will unimagine what he's going to do to them if they don't bow to him and his demands. This white man is telling you, you put down your guns. I have the supreme guns. You do not. And that's to the whole planet Earth. And holding that flag up. And the hymns. America, America. And the drum, boom, boom, boom. And here come the ships and the cannons and the airplanes overflying. And we'll bomb the living hell out of you. Every man, woman, and child will murder and kill if you don't become Christian favored. Incidentally, I know just how grossly ugly I am. So if you think I don't know that, I do. I'm doing the gorilla thing, like the silverback. Because that's what I really am. I mean, I should have a big old beard, which I hate, and to be completely normal. And this being old fat and slobby, and this here, that's part of my age, but it's also part of my ALS. My muscle is all deteriorating. My hands don't even hardly want to work anymore. They do, so I know how ugly I am. And I know how ugly my face is, and I'm this ugly, retarded, stupid guy saying things about the stimulants and turning us into warring, killing monsters in that Queen Elizabeth and Buckingham Palace. And that is who we are. We speak English. We go to her church. And we have these gatherings. And now making America great again. These are the people that control every courthouse, every township, every county, every city, and the entire your community, wherever you live. I don't care if it's New York or Phoenix, Arizona, or Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, or a little town where there's 200 people or 50,000. Your county, your state, your federal is all run by this white elite. These are the ones that elected President Trump. And they're making America great again. Well, they see that they're losing, with all minorities, which they want to just love, but only in a certain way that they fit into their manufacturing and don't interfere with their housing and their churches and their parades. We have parades and the marching bands. Marching bands, boy, what could be better than that? You know, leading us off to war. And this old lunacy, this old Christian lunacy. So it's the Christians, it's circumcision, it's caffeine, it's alcohol, it's nicotine, it's hybrid wheat and bananas, and you know, even your carrots and potatoes. I mean, what do we do? That's we got here one step at a time. And as far as what happened this last 75 years, and I'm just using that window frame from when I was born, the numbers work out good because that was the end of World War II, and there were 2.5 billion people, and we added 5 billion people. That's 1,000 million, 5 times. So 1,000 million, 1,000 million, 1,000. That's 1,000 million people. Now 1,000 million people. We have 300, and let's call it three. That's 3 times the population of the United States, the entire United States. 3 times that many people. That's just 1 billion. So 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, 3 times the United States population, 5 times. Or you can say the entire population of China and India combined. You know, it's just so massive. And then this thing about we were on, my mom over here, I always refer to this, born in a covered wagon. In 1920, 21, we had cars then, but everybody didn't have them. We didn't have one yet. And we got one shortly after that. And so horses and living on dirt and to this rocket spaceship, turn the thermostat, turn the faucet, you know, and step in and shower, and you know, this is all this modern, all these clothes, and we just think this is just the greatest thing, you know. It's monkeys, you know. Silverback, that's what I was getting to earlier. I was telling you how ugly I am. That's if I was a gorilla, and the man is just a gorilla. Only he's and I'd be like older gorilla. All a silverback is, he's just a big old fat older. He looks big and fat to us, but actually he's a big ferocious creature. And still yet he's just, and as he's getting older, he's getting gray. So that's what I am, and I'm big and ferocious too. Yeah, well, I'm still breathing, and so if this was a gorilla, let's put a gorilla face on me, and I'm an actual gorilla, well, that would look pretty natural. We see him with his tits and his big pot belly, and he's got hair all over his face, and he's gorilla, you know, and I'm this human, you know, with skin. Our hair is not for we human gorillas, and our facial hair, like I talked about earlier, I would grow if I was doing that, but I just it stands out so much. It's either you look like a guru or you look like a hippie or we're so culturized to this British shaven look, circumcised, you know, and the hair just so, and then I should be in a suit here and a white shirt and tie, you know, and my polished Oxfords and British, American. And that's when you're talking American, you know, we got that red, white, and blue flag. That's a British flag. And if the British weren't a bunch of killers and supremacy, if you look at that queen, that Buckingham Palace, and that whole entire thing, and you look behind her, and you'll see them Rembrandt oil paintings, you know, some of them 8 feet wide and 10 feet high, of all the other kings and all their silk and crowns and their whole greatness and gold and silver and diamonds and rubies and china, and I mean, they're just, you know, and these are the murderous monsters of the world. So they put a queen in. We've got a queen mother, see, and they're trying to slip out of this deal. It's like they know they're a bunch of murderers. Them English and the whole works of them. They know they're murdering monsters. But now they brought the gal in, Markle, part black. Her mother's black, her dad's white, and first ever into the royal bloodline. But that's who we've all evolved. King James Version, the Bible, and you know, and the Jews fit in here in their way, and you know, and we colonized the whole planet Earth, and then took the Americas and brought in the African slaves and the Spanish conquistador. That's part of the royal family, you know, and the French and then the Scandinavia fits into there, and you know, they're all a bunch of Catholics and Norwegians and Lutherans, and this thing just goes on forever. But we've done this thing that we're doing now, you know, and it's just ludicrous. Now it isn't to them; they're the clique. If you can remember back in your school days, the cliques, and the rich kids usually, and because they always had better cars and better clothes and more money for all the stuff that's going on, and they were, you know, the cheerleaders and the football stars and all that great and stuff, and all the rest of us, we were part of that too, and then there was the other one, the kind of the outcasts. They weren't really outcasts, but some of them lived pretty rough lives, but there wasn't very many of those where I was at, because we were all pretty well. It was Boeing, south of Seattle, where I grew up. Boeing boom country, so it was pretty prosperous. Mostly all white. There was pockets of, you know, Filipinos and blacks in certain places, and you see a few Indians here and there, but 99% white in those days. And so the cliques, and those cliques in the community there, their moms and dads are the civic leaders, and they have the businesses and the churches, and those same cliques just kept evolving here. So don't forget, we just settled. This right where I'm standing, this is 150 years ago, there was not a white man standing here. You know, or that's about when they first started coming in. The Indians were still living in tribes, and they had been forced from all the way from the East Coast, and the warring and killing of the Indians. They'd killed the whole west or eastern half of the United States and taken it. I'm talking the whole entire Florida to New York up to Canada, and then all the way across in Georgia and the Carolinas and Tennessee and Illinois, and you know, this huge half of the United States. But this half here going west towards California and Washington, Oregon, Montana, Nevada, Colorado, this whole thing, them Indians were still doing what had been doing, except for the migrations of whites and the murdering of the white people and their guns and their cavalries, and now the rest of the murdering took place the rest of the way. Yeah, the Civil War, and then after the Civil War, the Indian Wars. Chief Joseph and Sitting Bull, but you can't. This thing is a force you cannot stop. So these people then, so they settled here in Detroit Lakes, and they settled in Bozeman, Montana, and Seattle, Washington, and California, and the whole west half. Well, they had been a few hundred years, you know, from the 1700s, all the way from the colonies, coming this way. And so, and they're entrenched in all of the schools and the governments and the civic organizations, and just to a constant. And these are the people right here in Detroit Lakes, our courthouse, and you walk in our courthouse, and you got these marble steps, and you know, the pillars and the dome, and it's just unbelievable. Jail built right onto it. In all of our government functions, and you come down those steps, and here's the Lutheran church right there, taller yet than the courthouse, you know, and these are the people running this, and then the Catholic, you can hear the bells just down the road there, boom, boom at noon, you know, the lunch Catholics. These are the wonderful Christians that are running Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and every city in America, small, medium, or large. I don't care if you got 10 people in your community, or you got 200 or 200,000 or 2 million, 20 million. There are the ones that are running the whole show. All the businesses, every business there is, from landscaping to wells and plumbers and the hardware stores and the grocery stores and the barber shops and the dresses and clothes and every aspect of your lives. These people have gotten their niche. And the first thing I tell you, they used to train us. I was going to be a pilot one time for crop dusting, and they were training us how to integrate into the communities. And wherever we were to set up shop at, if we were going to be crop sprayers for that area, we were to join all the Lions and the Elks and the Eagles and all of the civic organizations and churches and stuff so we could integrate ourselves and let them know we were there and we're playing their game just like they're playing their game, and we believe like they believe, and of course we're all white, and we would be part of the clique, and the clique, they can't see a thing wrong with that because they're such wonderful people. You know, I go to the football game, you know, or the basketball or the ice skating rink, or I mean, they got everything going on out there, and 911 and the fire department and the police and National Guard, and of course there's the federal, you know, and the FBI and the state and county and city and municipality and township, and amongst all this they got the insurance and they got the real estate and they got the banking and the loan companies and they even got the pawn shops. I mean, they got it all, and they don't think that they do. They think, well, yes, this is America, it's free, and you can grab you a lawnmower and become a landscaper if you want, or you can open you up a pawn shop, and you can start a hardware business and a grocery store, and in theory you can, but you know, when just like this bigger one and that littler one, they got there first, and they're white and they're Christian, and you know, it's the old "you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours." They're sharing this thing. They're sharing this power. They're sharing this belief. That's why you'll hear them. They're so venomous when they talk about them libs, and them commies, you know, and them baby murderers, Democrats. You know, they're just, you know, venomous to these, you know, communists, you know, and then they'll jump across the water, them Russian communists and them Chinese, Red China. That's where when we came into Korea, that was them, because them were them communists, and we were going to help these southern Koreans become Christian, democracy, capitalism, and so here we're the great ones. And of course, the war machine oils, you know, the greases the economy here, and the whole thing. It isn't a conspiracy per se at all. It's a belief. It's a belief, and it's a superiority. And the superiority is the caffeine, the alcohol, and the nicotine. You know, the queen and her tea, you know. And so you meet with the queen, you'll have your tea and your pastries of whatever sort, you know. And in the evening, there'll be alcohol, and, you know, so caffeine, alcohol. And then Sir Walter Raleigh and his pipes, he added that nicotine after they come to the Americas. He gives them a superiority. People take amphetamines or cocaine. Jesus, they just kings of the earth, you know, and because that's the high, and that's the high. The Aztecs on that chocolate, a link to paradise. They said when they would ingest that, they'd mix it with water, and it was a kind of a bitter, and but it would get high, and when they're high, it's kind of like your adrenaline. Your adrenaline comes up in a time of need, so that your senses become more acute, and you can focus in more directly, and you're seeing and whatnot. And along with that, the colors will brighten and the sounds will enhance. Now, if there's no danger or anything, your adrenaline will go back to normal. But when you take caffeine, it stays there. Now you got, let's say there's not an enemy to be dealing with right at this moment. But it's that adrenaline rush and that adrenaline high, and the beauty of life and the sky and the birds and the children and the laughter and the water and the trees, and you know, every living thing, and just being alive and breathing. You know, you feel good normally. Now you feel really good. You know, you're high, a link to paradise, and what a wonderful thing. And they don't know that these Inca and Mayan and Aztecs, that also turned them into these warring, send out the armies and the troops with their weapons and mass murder and take villages and enslave them and turn them in, and they'll build and be your slaves for you great ones. See, along with that link to paradise of just feeling good and being high is also this superiority. Pretty soon we got crowns and jewels and the royal carriage and, you know, Buckingham Palace, and in the case of the Inca and the Mayan and the Aztec, we got building these pyramids like the Egyptians, and what they call the high priests, and all this is all from the high, and that's the same high that took us from the horse and buggies to the moon and to the 2.5 billion to 7.5 billion, and now we're all chawing at the bit. And of course, the Christians are the clique that is in command of all this, and then right down, like I'm saying, to our local communities. It's so entrenched, it's so ingrained. These are 63 million people that voted for Donald Trump. And then the regular people, like my family and kids, they don't want to live in an awful world. They just want to have a good time and take care and work hard and provide for their families. That's all good. If these cliques weren't also a bunch of warring, murdering monsters, you know, gonna make the whole world. Well, we got to stop these atomic bombs that we developed, and because if North Korea's got it or China, they're gonna bomb the living hell out of us, because they don't want us lording it over them economically or religiously or any other way. So we rationalize that, but in the process of that, we violated nature. And nature says those bucks that live in the Asian world, and those bucks that live in even the white people of the Russian, and all them bucks the world over get to be bucks, and the does get to be does, and the offspring, and they don't all gotta when the queen and the king comes through, and the businessmen, the businessmen and the investors come through, and the marketing of everything from trees and nickel and oil and the whole resource thing, you know. This is all ludicrous. This is all insanity, and it's all brought on by all the stimulants. And these are all man-made. You know, people have the man-made part of this. Well, wheat is man-made. Honey is man-made. And you know, honey, they protect their hives in the wild, true, where the honeybee originated. And now we've got them to where they'll sting the hell out of you. You a bear or a man or a monkey try to get into that hive, boy, and you got a hornet's nest coming at you. And you get out of there. But they've captured them and tamed them like cows. And now they go in and they can get the queen and put her queen in the worker bees. And pretty soon they got a new colonies and more and more and more. And pretty soon, like, you got 50 cows in your herd. Now you got 200 cows. And if you're huge, maybe you got 2,000 cows. And you're milking all these cows. And you're feeding all this plant life, pollinating it. So you're getting all that to grow this man's hybrid wheat and corn and potatoes and everything else. And then you got the cows. We're milking all them cows and taking their baby's milk, which is high lactose and meant to be just like a mama's high lactose, and feeding that to our babies. It's completely unnatural. And that's where the sugar thing does what it does. And that's where the hybrid carbohydrate does what it does. So you take them in along with. And then the last part of this would be this, since World War II, it actually goes back before that, but we synthesized or learned how to cut cocaine and make amphetamines and methamphetamines, and we added Viagra now and Adderall and all these other stimulants on top of all these stimulants. The kings were the kings and the queens and the murder and monster army for thousands of years before amphetamines and cocaine and methamphetamines and Viagra. Now we got all them additional stimulants on top, and that's this last 50, 75-year thing that we're in now. And it's a monster, and it's an enormous monster. And all these people, the thing that I'm referring to is they hate us. They don't know that they're all a bunch of stimulated monsters too. They don't know that. Now, they're under the Chinese rule and under the Russian rule. They found neutral ground, just like we're finding neutral ground even within this Christian thing. because it's a human nature to want to live and raise our families. You know, whether you're in poverty or wealth or anywhere in between, whether you're black or white or in Africa or a mixed race culture or anywhere you're at, in the city or in the country. It's, you know, the tree wants to grow. You put the seed in the ground and it'll find its way up around the cement if it has to. And if it gets stepped on, it'll try to recover from that if it can. And that's what we are. We're the seeds of life, of human beings. And so we're all mustering what we can here to make it the best we can. But it's not going to work because we've got all this adrenaline flowing through our bloodstreams unnaturally from all of these stimulants that we're consuming, yeah, just massively. So here's this one today. I just some more of the same, and I'm going to do one. I'm going to try to do one every single day for the rest of my life. And I don't know if I got another 180 days, or 90, or 342, or what. But eventually my arms are going to quit completely. When my arms quit completely, I got no arms and hands. I'm the man in the barrel syndrome of this ALS. I got some decisions to make because I can no longer go to the bathroom. I can no longer eat. How am I going to get my food? How am I going to get my mouth? Because I got no arms. How am I going to wipe my ass? How am I going to put on clothes? How am I going to get out of bed? Now, are they going to put me in? They got the Hoyer lift, they call it, where you got to have helpers for everything. You're like a 10-week-old child, infant, that needs to be cared for in every aspect. You know, you can lay, and then but you will need to eat. And you go to potty in your pants, and you know, you got little arms and little legs, but this is a 300-pound old ugly fat slob. You know, who I didn't bring it up. It was going to be one of my jokes. I didn't do it yesterday with all the kids there, and they say, "Who wants to wipe my ass?" Because I'm trying to let them know that, and I guarantee you, not one of them. You know, I'm not saying they wouldn't. But I wouldn't have wanted to wipe Ma's ass or Dad's ass. I'd have did it. But and then forever and you got to lift them up and carry them, and you got to get, and then pretty soon they can't even swallow. And then you got to cut a hole in their throat and run something down into their stomach, eat them with a tube, and then they can't breathe either. Still got eyeballs for a while yet here. And they can run computers like that famous Hawkins guy, Stephen Hawkins. And many, there's thousands, if not millions, that ain't millions, because there ain't that many, but there's many thousands still doing the computers like this. Now, some of these people, their families are such that, the guy's wives, if it's a man, or the woman's husband, if it's that, and the sisters and brothers and mothers and dads, and their economic situation, they got all this help. Mine, my kids don't want to do none of that, and I don't blame them. And a rest home, what am I going to do in a rest home? I'll lay there, and then 2 nurses are going to come in and wipe my ass, and I got these tubes. I mean, what is it going to be? So I use the word I'm going to check out, and I expect to take a swim out in the lake. I can still do that, kick my legs. The legs, in my situation, now some people's legs go first, and some people have what they call bull bar, and their breathing part goes first. Mine is limb onset arms. That's the man in the barrel syndrome, and so I still have legs for a while, yeah. But if I accomplish this, say 6 months from now or whenever it turns out that I got no arms no more, no arms, no hands, none. They're just nothing. Still got legs if I can be stood up. But you got to try walking with no arms because you trip anyway because the legs start to give you trouble too. You're going over and you got no arms. So you're a hazard to yourself and your balance. Your arms is part of your balance. You don't realize it when you're going up down the steps and you're moving around. You got these arms. and you balance with those, and you touch, and but you take all that away. But what I'm getting at, and I tell people, it's not suicide. I'm adamantly against suicide. I think it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing to do to the survivors. And if a person's going to take their own life, they're taking their own life. But it isn't just that, because you got all the families. And, if you're one lone wolf on this and your entire family does not exist, and you kill yourself or don't kill yourself, that's up to you. I still don't believe in it. I mean, there's no way to believe in it. But for family people, my grandfather killed himself, and it was not a good thing. I wasn't there, wasn't even born yet. But I know it affected the family profoundly. And yeah, they were all separated by then. It was just him all by himself at the Bunnell farm. And I think he took a shotgun and put it to his head and blew his brains out. And that was the end of him. He couldn't take it anymore. And he had a thyroid condition, which is part of the problem that they were having. In those days, they didn't realize that. He had a goiter. They said a golf ball sized goiter where his thyroid gland would be. And that puts chemicals into your body system. And overactive thyroid is what a goiter is. Sometimes they call it Graves' disease now. So there's all kinds of explanations. In the process of that, my dad was still alive, and my uncle Bird, I don't know if he went down with the ship yet or not, about that time, I think. And then Uncle Jerry, my Uncle Jerry committed suicide 50 years after that, or 40 years after that, something like that. His was a tragedy. They had him on doctor's meds. That was part of his problem. But he was psychologically damaged, too, from grandfather and granny's breakup, and then his dad having killed himself. And there's a lot of tragedy. So I don't believe in suicide. But when assisted suicide, like California's got the laws, and you can go in and get a shot or something. And but the old people, I always refer to the story I had heard, if it's true, of the Indians when they reach a certain point in age when they're incapable of caring for themselves anymore, and they know when their time is at hand. They don't know exactly which hour or which day. But sometimes they would just kind of hasten this thing along, maybe just go off find a spot there and overlook the river there from sitting underneath the tree, and just kind of sit there, and then no water, no food, and whatever the night air might be and day, and however many long before they died. And that was they had completed their life. Well, a terminal illness, somebody gets cancer, let's say, or has to have a heart transplant. It's an impossibility because of their health conditions. They're terminally dying, and that's the one they're trying to get the rights to die in a lot of different states and everything. So that's the one I say I don't begrudge these people. They got to say to their families, goodbye, I love you, but it's I can't live anymore because this is what my life has brought me, some by the genes and hereditary, some for things we did inappropriate in our environment. Say if it's a health or a cancer, if I smoke cigarettes and I'm 60 years old and dying of lung cancer, that's because I smoke cigarettes. Mine happens to be ALS, and whether it's related to any of the lifestyle or whether it's related to hereditary only or what it might be or not be. So I don't have 5 years, I'll guarantee you that, and I don't expect 4, and I don't expect 3, and I don't expect 2, and the 1 would surprise me if I was here a year from now, and then I'll have to make this decision. I might chicken out and be that vegetable in the rest home that could, getting his ass wiped and laying there till can no longer. But I've requested, and it isn't like life support, but it's the same thing as life support. This life support, you think of life support, you think of a person completely catamose and without any consciousness and living on breathing for and food and whatever, everything about that. And then that's how my vision is of life support, and then let this person go or not let this person go. The thing about ALS makes it unique in itself is you're conscious if you can communicate, something like he was communicating by twitching his, that Stephen Hawking, twitching his thing on the, looking at the computer and twitching his thing, and it was connected there in a way that it knew which letter and which word he was trying to say, and then they had pre-recorded the voices and stuff, and it's talking. So you have a conscious being with this tube down their throat, for one for food and another hole there for breathing, and then this Hoyer lift them in and out of this wheelchair. They're really sitting in a wheelchair just rather than be talking to him in bed. You could have just well seen him, but you got to transport him to different places, and he's having these talks, and I'll hold it up for the man. Great, that worked for him, and he took it to the whole extent. And for every ALS patient that chooses some of that or all of that, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that. I really don't know. I might. Well, I'll call it chicken out from my thing about going to take that long swim. Take the long swim, and I hardly got no arms, but I'm a real good swimmer and very buoyant. But then, if I'm really capable and could do this, then dive to the bottom of the water, just keep going, and then go, blow out. You've held your breath when you went under, and blow it out. Because I'm a swimmer since I was a little kid, and I know as you're trying to get to the top there, if you got to blow out that air, you're in trouble, because now it's nothing but water to come in. And so, like when we was kids, we had to get to that top. But it was just a panic sometimes. We were only down 10 feet. But we didn't have enough air. Maybe we hit the water wrong, or somebody bumped into it. That one time, I think that guy pushed me down again. I was just about to come out. And I've been in that desperate spot. Well, that doesn't sound like a good way to die to me. But they've always said you are in a horrid panic at that last second. But I think when it happens, this is what I'm visualizing, and then you can't get no air in because you're in nothing but water, and the water comes in your lungs. I think at that point that everything goes kaboom. There is no trying to breathe anymore. You can't. There's no more fighting to get up and make it out of there, because you're going down. And I think at that point they say it's not the worst death. The ones that they've pulled back from that have said it hasn't been that bad. I think that's when the people are going, their nature throws our endorphins in at that point. And we kind of go to a peaceful spot and pass on. We die. And whether it's from oxygen deprivation, or from some people put the exhaust pipe in the car and run that in and let themselves go to sleep with that. And, others pull a trigger on a shotgun or a gun. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. But I think we all get to the same spot. It would be my estimation, whether you die in surgery or of natural causes, but hopefully of old age, when you're 102. I wish that for every human being there is. But at any rate, I think when the light's going out, I think we get to have, you'll hear the robes and the trumpets and all that stuff. I think that's the endorphin type dopamine words that they use for and there's other chemicals and stuff. My uncle Jack, he was underneath the log, and he's gone, can't breathe because this thing is the weight, and so he's leaving this earth, and there's robes, and people will talk about the beckoning. Maybe we'll have a vision of our relatives or something, and going to this wonderful place. And I think that's the way nature kind of lets us leave this earth. And then I think that the light starts to fade, because we're still alive at that point, see? And just like the snakehead that jumps up and bites somebody, cut the rattlesnake's head off, and he's biting, lashing out and biting at somebody, and they do it. They haven't died just a while back, or almost died, because he's not all the way dead yet. So I think when these senses leave, then at that point, I think the light gets lighter and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and then the light goes all the way out. And there's no consciousness, there's no nothing, and there's also no great, wonderful place we went to. We would like to think that. I think we're simply dead. I think that's the end of it. I don't believe one bit that there's anything more You don't go to hell because you did bad things. You don't go to heaven because you did good things, and you don't nothing. This light faded all the way to nothing, and it's pitch dark, and there's no feelings, there's no senses, there's no nothing. It's over with. The living live on, and I got to have mine, and everybody will have theirs. Well, good talking with you all. I'm still trying to get my message out. It's not a blubbering bunch of shit. It's very valid, very real, and very important. If we were to grasp that this Queen Elizabeth Buckingham Palace mentality that we all live in, with the Bible and Christianity and all of our stimulants and chocolate and caffeine and nicotine and wheat and milk and juice and honey and superiority, that and that's why we're these warring, killing, religious monsters. I don't know what we can do with this, but if we could, a dream for me would be if we could, so now we no longer try to take over China. China no longer tries to take over us. We realize they got their territory, we got our territory. We're all going to deal with this stimulant thing. Russia's going to deal with it. Africa's going to deal with it. And this, do you realize all of Africa and all of South America and all of India, all of the Philippines, do you realize white shirts and ties and Christianity and circumcision and coffee, tea and sugar and chocolate? It's just, this is a global thing that we have done. And our marketers, our farmers and our businessmen and our bankers and making money and prospering and you know, and building these castles and acquiring land and wealth and stock markets and then now technologies and, you know, all seem to be such a great and wonderful thing. And realizing it's just all bullshit. And that Trayvon Martin, his fat girlfriend, his black girlfriend. I think Trayvon's the guy Trayvon's the guy that got shot. I think I don't want to get him mixed up. There's the Mexican that shot the guy. I don't think that's Trayvon. I think Trayvon was the guy that got shot, the 19-year-old, and he was off somewhere, you know, in a new area visiting somebody, and the Mexican, I can't remember his name, shoots him. He thinks he's a trespassing bad person doing bad things, and he's trigger happy here. And I got nothing good to say about the guy that shot him. But the guy that got shot, the black guy that got shot, his girlfriend, or female friend, maybe not necessarily a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm not sure. But her and him, they had broadcast some of her talks that she had shared with him and stuff. And they're talking about life and stuff, and she's saying bullshit. It's all bullshit, you know. Well, she's absolutely right. It's all bullshit. You know, you sit and look at that queen and that carriage and tell me that ain't bullshit. You know, and you to all these people in their churches and in their armies going out and sending their sons and daughters to go murder, and they're heroes, murdering everybody. You know, and thinking they're not doing it. Don't tell me that ain't bullshit. And no respect for other people's territory. They think they're the most respectful people in the world because they have complete control of everything. You know. And in fact, they have no respect at all for nothing but their clique and their grouping. They're just a bunch of stupid monkeys that got there first and got the hold, and now they're lording it over you. And that is the natural instinct, but it's exaggerated. You know, and as it's exaggerated from all these stimulants, and not just exaggerated, massively, you know, with warring, killing police and armies. I mean, you go out here and drive 45 where you're supposed to drive 25 and see how long you last. You go out there and walk in the middle of that road and see how long you last. Them cops are coming to get you, and they have complete control. They're going to put you in jail, and they'll put you in prison, and they'll execute you if that's what's required here. But you're not going to walk in the middle of that street. You're not going to drive 45 and a 35. Or 25. It's all well and good. We got to have rules and laws in order to function in this crazy modern world, and we're all okay for that for the most part. But there's more to it than that. You know, it's hard to convey. I see it plainly from ground up. I don't know what I'm missing even. But that's because I got onto this thing. I got onto it by discovering the wheat was my entry into this. I realized that wheat and sugar did the same thing when they hit your stomach. I had always known sugar was a potent drug, and a potent, powerful stimulant drug. And I knew caffeine was, but not wheat. And when wheat, and I learned that wheat, and then I'm saying, how can that be? And then the light came on. Well, it's hybrid. And here we are eating big loaves of bread and bushels of flour. And when in nature we would be getting seeds, plants and stalks and seeds and hulls and chewing them up. Well, we'd only get that amount of that because there wasn't that much. That if we otherwise we'd eat it all, it wouldn't be done. And then along with that, we're getting all those fibers and nutrients and minerals and enzymes and everything you can think of, and we're in all these other little different types of berries and fruits and seeds, and then the eggs and the meats and the burgers and the so the ratios were 1,000 times less than what we consume, and that's where they became the stimulant drugs, the wheat and the sugar, and the honey and all that, and the milk. The baby is supposed to start with that high sugar content, and it's very good for them along with the fat. It gets them going in life. But then in the real world, they would migrate into the rest of the normal human diet, not this high sugar, high carbohydrate. And then the caffeine, that's a whole nother bird. And the alcohol and nicotine. I mean, these are more very direct adrenaline body chemistry affecting to go with all that. Well, that's it. I'm at around an hour and 1 minute here. About what yesterday was 58 minutes, I think. So here I am, the handsome guy. And how many people, the hope too is that as I'm putting these on, and like I'm saying, until the day I die, if I can do it, and I think I'm gonna be playing some music, when I am dead, if this message has still gotten nowhere, this message that I say I should have not just a Nobel Prize, but every single one they got, from physics to chemistry to peace to everything you could think of in them Nobel Prizes. Maybe there's one that I don't fit, but I think I probably fit them all. And because this thing is that important to be known. So hopefully this YouTube and Google and the computers and the internet, and somewhere along the line, they can say, hey, you see that big fat Bunnell? And talking about sugar being a potent drug, and wheat and milk and juice and honey, besides the amphetamines and cocaine and amphetamines and methamphetamines and Viagra, I throw that in big time. And, an aphrodisiac. And they just slid it in. They slid that in with Bob Dole. His wife was president of the Red Cross. And they knew bringing an aphrodisiac, into the culture, into the society. So they get Bob Dole, who was vice president of the United States under not Nixon, but the original Bush, I think. I get mixed up now. Maybe it goes way back to he was Nixon's vice president or Reagan's. But then his wife, Red Cross. And here he's giving commercials, and just as this is a healthy, red-blooded, fine America, and they're for erectile dysfunction, Viagra, and this thing swept the nation, swept the world. And there's a marketing genius there, And Dole's sitting there with then he does the Pepsi commercial with the gal dancer, or whatever her name is, the Disney protege. And then the dog, and he's saying, down boy, he's showing his sexuality, see, but doing it in a palatable, chuckly, fun way. So this thing swept the planet Earth, Viagra, along with amphetamines and methamphetamine. Those are all pharmaceuticals. And even the cocaine is pharmaceutical, where the Indian had the leaves, and then they would chew the lime, so the acidic lime would break down the leaves, and they would get, we got way, freebasing or whatever they call it, and snorting them lines of cocaine. That's a chemical process, man-made. So it's the man-made, and it's the man-made genius that we think is so great. There's nothing great about it. It's just stimulated, and along with the genius is all this greed and stuff. Okay, so have a good day. Goodbye. To my family and kids, I'll say I love you. To the rest of the world, I'll say you're great and wonderful people. Just your families, there's every single one that I love. You love your families like I love my families. And we love life. And to say I love you would be stupid. Uh, but I would say that before I would not say that to the world, because I'm your existence is equal to mine and equal to every other human being. We're not these kings and queens are the great ones, and these are the inferior ones, because of their education or their class or culture. And I feel sorry for retarded people and mentally diseased and in whatever aspects to those extents. And I'll say, yeah, we're more than that, and we're better than that, and we're more fortunate than them. And so it isn't like we don't have no one-upmanship and accomplishments and who gets to run the fastest and who's the toughest and who gets to stay and have their territory. But I know goddamn well that we white people are ruling and controlling all this. And if it had been the black people had been the ones that came across the waters and made slaves out of the white people, and South Americans that took over Europe, whichever that grouping, they'd be the ones that are the cliques in the colonies, and they would be the ones, and we white people would be trying we would be one of the minorities because we were slaves and they took our land and everything, and they're the kings and the rulers, and so it'd be the same thing. And whether we would like to think we white people that we were more merciful, well, we're the most unmerciful people that ever existed. So they would probably be that. They couldn't be any worse, but they'd probably be the same, because they with the belief of seeing everybody as the enemies, that they're supposed to be converted to Christianity and circumcised and have that Bible and go to church and wear that tie and be like these white people. Only it'd be, in this case, the black people that took over, or the American Indian, South American, or the North American. Let's say the North American Indians got big boats and found guns and made steel and gunpowder and made bigger boats, and they went across the water and took over everybody. They would like to think that they would not be these monsters. But really, if they start to end all the stimulants that gave them that power. So I'm not letting us off the hook. We white people don't get took off the hook. We're the last of the monsters, the biggest, worst of the monsters. And there's some reasoning behind that, which is a whole discussion. But it's happened and it shouldn't happen. And we're in the land of milk and honey, Europe and the United States and many other parts of the world. But this population is so huge, and we're so dependent on this high carbohydrate, high sugar, nicotine, alcohol, chocolate existence globally. And the marketers that are doing all this, and the tobacco and everything you can think of. And when this thing rocks and the economy collapses, this little tiny bit of migration thing that we're fighting with now, it's a drop in the bucket. If this baby goes, and Trump's about to push it over, he's trying to keep his ass from going to prison. The man belongs in prison for the rest of his life, along with his wife and children and babies. I mean, not really for the babies and the children, but and Melania, she's a KGB special agent sent over here to get a white rich businessman, never dreaming going to be first lady of the White House and first lady of the President of the United States. I mean, that's just beyond comprehension for them and for us and for her and everybody involved. Of course, we don't acknowledge that. How do you not acknowledge that? I'll never know. And Putin and them are sitting there looking at us, and China, and I'm sure that Kim Jong has been clicked into this. You realize that Melania is a Russian KGB agent? And they're saying, man, yeah, we got these Americans by the nuts. We're just letting them corrupt with homosexuality and LGBTQ, PPP, and marijuana, and that superiority, Christianity, and circumcision. We're just going to watch them drown. And you know, as Longman said, that's how the marijuana came to be. And then they'll endorse the marijuana like they believe in it, and they'll endorse the whole thing that's going on to feed that lion, you know. And as they watch us collapse from within, and this whole thing erupt. And at that point, where they're missing the boat, they have to do that because we're infiltrating them. And with Radio Free Europe and Liberty something and all them things, we're going in there and undermining their cultures and smuggling in Bibles and trying to convert and make churches and overthrow their governments and their peoples. And then of course we're the great ones again, you know. It's a real can of worms. Okay, have a good day and best to you all, and thank you.